pals, today's plant of the day is a pygmy sundew called Drosera Scorpioides. So the pygmy sundews, the name makes you think that they're all going to be so tiny you can't see them. And while they are all very kind of cute and miniature, Drosera Scorpioides is actually one of the bigger ones. It grows on these kind of tall stalks. This, for instance, is a pot of Scorpioides that is only a year old, and you can see how tall they are. These are, let's see, when did I do these? January of 2021. So you can see how much they grow. And actually in the wild, Alan Lowry found a population of them that were 10 years old. And you can imagine how tall those got. He estimated that they grew about 2 centimeters a year. Pygmy sundews come from southwestern Australia in large part. There are of course some outliers. And Drosera Scorpioides does come from southwestern Australia, where it has a climate very similar to the area we're in Northern California. So we're in zone 9B, if you're curious, for the USDA zone map. And we have hot, dry summers, we have cool, wet winters, and that's kind of perfect for something like Drosera Scorpioides. It is a really fun plant to grow. So let's talk about the way it looks first of all. So this plant, as you can see, it has a lot of motion for a plant that doesn't actually move. And what I mean by that is the whirl of the leaves give it the appearance of dancing or movement. Like for instance, every time I come back in the nursery, I always sort of feel like I caught them mid-dance party and they've like frozen because a person walked back. They look like they're just spinning around just because of the whirl of the leaves and the shapes and forms that they make. And they grow on these really tall stalks. So now, why do they grow in this form? Like, why do these particular ones grow so tall? There's a lot of reasons. Most of the pygmy sundews slowly over time will kind of raise up a little bit from the ground, and that's because where they would grow in southwestern Australia, as you can imagine, it's very hot on the substrate in the summer. And so if they can lift themselves up a little bit, they're going to protect themselves from that heat. And so let's talk about the life cycle of these, because that's all part of it and what you can expect when you grow them. As you can see on these plants, all of these old leaves have died back and turned brown, and that's totally normal. And that's how they would work in the wild. They would be lifting themselves up, the old leaves would turn brown. In summer, you can even expect all of these leaves to turn brown in very, very hot places. And in the center of the plant, right up here at the top of the crown, and you can see it more clearly on a plant like this, there's a little crown of white stipules that will close over the little juvenile growth in the center of the plant. And those white stipules will reflect the heat of the summer sun and keep the plant safe from heat. And so sometimes in the summer, even growing them in cultivation, if they have a really hot day, you'll notice something like your Scorpioides will suddenly all look dead and all have these white fuzzy tops. And people will email us and they'll be so worried. But it's actually a form of sort of summer protection, summer dormancy sometimes it's referred to. And it's because they're growing that little white fuzzy top to protect that juvenile growth. The stipules have just come in to close up like a little awning over the plant. The leaves have died back a little bit, and the plant is just insulating itself to protect itself like it would in the natural environment. So you will see that oftentimes in Scorpioides more than other species. Hold out hope. It's not necessarily like a dead situation. Just wait until winter when the photo periods shorten and it gets a little cooler. Keep your plants sitting in water this whole time. And in winter, you'll often see regrowth start again. And you can see on these plants again, you can see here's the dead old leaves and then the new ones growing from here. And that's a normal growth pattern. And then in winter, the stipules will start to open. And as they open, that's when they start to form their gemmae, which is a form of asexual reproduction for the plant when it's making copies of itself. Now I've harvested the gemmae from the tops of these plants, but you can even see new gemmae still coming in. And those gemmae look really different than the regular leaves, so you'll know it's gemmae when it's coming in. The gemmae will come in winter, they take a few months to ripen, and then what would happen in nature is this whole crown would be covered in this gemmae, which has been ratcheting out, pushing back the stipules. As the gemmae come out, they push those stipules back, and that creates tension on the top of the plant. And as the gemmae ripen and they push out, they're waiting for a rainstorm. And when the rains come, a raindrop will hit that very tense, almost mousetrap-like tension, and the gemmae will burst off the top of the plants, and they can spring up to 2 meters from the mother plant. And wherever they land, they're gonna make new roots and start to form little tiny plants, little copies of the mother. So that's the life cycle you're gonna see on your own Scorpioides. You're gonna see summer, they might go a little bit dormant and look a little bit dead. Keep them sitting in water. In winter, you're gonna start to see that new growth. You're gonna then see the gemmae form. They're gonna push out, and that's a great time for you to harvest the gemmae. And you can see this is some gemmae that I actually just put in this pot. very recently, within the last month or so. And you can see these little plants are already starting to grow. It's really important to actually harvest your Gemmae and make these little plants because Drosera, pygmy Drosera are not the longest lived. So even though I just said in the beginning of this video that Alan Lowry had found a population that lived as long as 10 years in the wild, in cultivation, we generally see these live 3 to 5 years. And it's really important to keep your population going by harvesting that Gemmae and making more plants. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please comment below. I would also really love to know, how old is your oldest pot of pygmy sundews? Not just the Scorpioides, but how old is your oldest pot in cultivation? Because our oldest ones have been 5 to 6 years, sometimes I think as old as 7, but most of the time we do see them die back after 5. And I'd be really curious to know what your experience is at home. I hope you try Drosera Scorpioides. It is probably one of the most exciting of the pygmy sundews, the most popular that we have here at the nursery, and we usually have them available for sale in spring through summer. So definitely check out the website for them later in spring and summer. And again, let me know if you have questions about the amazing Drosera Scorpioides.